Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think every person testified as a given that benefit cuts would have to be part of this. I just want to put on the table that we have, in fact, advanced a plan, and I think both the Chamber and UPS have suggested that a loan program could actually, a long-term loan program could actually be part of this solution. I think it's really, really important that we set a ground rule that where I'm really committed to fixing this problem for our small businesses and workers and retirees, I don't accept right out of the chute that we'll have to lead with a benefit cut to solve this problem. And so, we're going to continue to look for solutions, but I think it's really important that that we recognize the need for shared sacrifice, but that we try and lay down a marker. I'd like to mainly address the question of withdrawal liability. We've heard compelling testimony, I think, today about the cost of doing nothing, especially for Main Street businesses. In the Central States Pension Fund, pretty much the only businesses that are left are, in fact, small businesses. About 90% of contributing employers have less than 50 employees. I want to tell you a story of one of those employers based in Fargo. Recently celebrated its 100th anniversary, been employing people in my state for 100 years. For 100 years, the business has played by the rules, contributed to economic prosperity of our community and our state, and provided that employment opportunity. And for over 60 years, it's made contributions to the Central States Pension Fund. Yet, for 2017, the owners tell me that their withdrawal liability number is about $7.4 million. That's up from $5 million in 2015, and that's to cover 21 people. It's overwhelming, and it is frightening, and it is terrifying small businesses all across my state who are still part of this program. So can you walk me through, and I'll throw this out to anyone who wants to answer, can you walk me through how this withdrawal liability might affect access to credit and capital, employee hiring decisions, and business investments for any firm? And what are the risks to employers participating in critical and declining plans such as Central States if accounting rules require contingent withdrawal liability to be recorded on the balance sheet? So right away, we go back to access to capital. You put that on your balance sheet, I don't know who's going to give you money. And that goes back to the question I think Mr. Schweitzer was getting at, which is this is very complicated. And it affects not only solving this problem, but bankruptcy, access to capital, and small business development. So, Mr. Langen?
Yes, thank you. From a withdrawal liability standpoint, there's one thing we have to keep in mind. Withdrawal liability occurs when you're going to withdraw in the simplest form. Your obligation to the plans is what you collectively bargain. So that's your, per se, liability that goes through your...
Mr. Blackman wants to get out, so let's just...
Okay.
He wants to withdraw, but he can't afford to.
I understand that, and we have withdrawn from a couple of plans ourselves, and we did pay the amount of the withdrawal liability that was required under the calculation. It's a financial decision for the company, but to your point, it is disclosed in the footnotes of the company today, so it is out there. And then once you ultimately do withdraw, you do have to book that on your balance sheet.
But how do I, as a senator from North Dakota, tell this small business who has 21 employees that it's reasonable to assume his withdrawal liability is over $7 million?
Unfortunately, the way the law is written today, that's how it's calculated. I can give you an example of a plan we were in. We had 2 employees, and the liability was $5 million. So it's a function of how the math works, and the way the law is today, it's spelled out very clearly how the withdrawal liability calculations are determined, unfortunately.
I want to make this point. So responsible employers who have provided this defined benefit plan and who haven't taken advantage of the bankruptcy exit now are holding the bag. I think that's a fair characterization of what's going on. And so, when you say don't change the bankruptcy laws, I agree that will create a huge amount of disruption in changing the queue on who gets paid first. But it also means that everybody who is the last man standing or the last person at the end of that ladder ends up with all the liability. And that fundamentally, just as it is not fair to these workers that they played by the rules and did everything right, that they're getting cut, it's not fair to these employers and these small businesses to be stuck here in this position. And I understand that we've got to balance this, and we've got to realize or think about what the government's role should be. And so, I've wasted, probably didn't waste, I didn't get a lot of questions here, but I wanted to just make the point that the employees are incredibly sympathetic, but so are my small businesses who are challenged with this problem, and we've got to come up with a solution that solves this for everyone.
If I could add just one quick thing, I won't take long. I think one way to look at this, the employers that have remained in the plans, we've actually acted as the PBGC in these plans because we absorb the liability.